Thank you for inviting me. And so I followed Justin's tour through the past to the present, which is quite astonishing. And we all more or less followed that or are using these kind of new technologies. And it's amazing the kind of speed which happened in all these recent years. So my topic was picked out by you, I think, and it's about forward into the future. I think this is always more difficult. You know, we know what had happened in the past, but obviously we don't know we don't know at least perfectly what will happen in the future. We guess something, and there is we need to make predictions. You as engineers, others make predictions how it could be, but we all know that there are scenarios, and there is I think a famous saying by Niels Bohr, a Nobel Prize winner. He said, "Predictions are always difficult, especially when they are about the future." And okay, so we have to be aware that some of these predictions are good and perfect, and others are failing. You know, I just talked to you when we had coffee, that there was years ago, and I myself had a TV set for a three-dimensional viewing of TVs, you know, and you got glasses, and then after 3 or 4 movies, I don't took the glasses anymore, and it was a flop, you know. So why? We can analyze it. Other things are much better off. So we always have to be aware that things can fail. But let's start with Cable Europe. Some of you might be aware, others not. So I try to mention a bit. So we are a small organization based in Brussels. You saw we only 5 in our office. I hope we are very efficient. You know, bigger organizations sometimes have problems. So, but in our organization, everybody knows everybody. We are focused on TV cable operators, and that was, I think, the initial founding of the organization. Therefore, it's Cable TV. We are a national trade organization in all over the European Union. And our main focus is on regulatory activities. You know what Ofcom, and you mentioned that I had been the president of a regulatory authority in Germany for 12 years, up to 2012. So basically, it's what Ofcom does, and the energy regulator in UK was bundled in my authority. In those days, but I had many more stuff. It was 2,800. Now we are 5. so things are changing. But I like my job since I left, because also in the European Union a lot of things are moving. Not only the whole Brexit debate, I don't mention that, you know, but also the European Union has now a new commission. There will be a new agenda, and they are constantly working on a lot of political topics, also of platforms, Google, Facebook, Amazon. So we have a lot of this policy discussions. So we try to have the interests of our members being present in these policy discussions. And some of these topics are still very critical and constantly under pressure. So the European cable industry is providing, maybe I show you our members. Maybe some members overlap with your members, or especially some individual members who are sitting here are also part of our members. Obviously here in the UK, our biggest member is Virgin, and Virgin is owned, as you all know, by Liberty Global. And so, and Virgin, what I also heard, is doing quite a bit in investment here in UK, the lighting project. So we followed that very closely, and I think Virgin is one of our very active members. And we can also show, because in the past everybody thought cable they're only staying in their footprint, huh? And there is an assumption that only fiber guys are investing in the infrastructure, and that's not true. I think the cable upgrades are significant over the past years, and we speak about that. So the role of Cable Europe is also to show the politicians the significance of cable. Because sometimes I have the feeling in Brussels, and I don't know how it's here in the UK, that everybody believes only fiber to the home, FTTH, is future-proof. And our mission is to say, okay, fine, if you have a greenfield where there is no cable, it might be wise to invest in FTTH or FTTB, but it's still very costly, as we all know. in rural areas, the rollout costs are very, very significant, and the return on your investment is a problem, So why, if we have cable and we have these good standards, and the DOCSIS standard and others, DOCSIS 3.1, 3.0, why not taking the existing infrastructure and making the best out of it? So this is also a kind of topic we are constantly advocating in Europe. Yeah, we also have a flagship event, like you have flagship events, which is the Cable Congress. This year, the Cable Congress will be in Berlin in November, and if you are interested, it's still possible to book there. We have a partner, Connects 364. It's the former Informa. It's from the 13th to the 14th of November, and there will be a lot of keynote speakers. It's usually 2 days, so just make you aware. So Europe, we are here in the UK, and Virgin, and the penetration of Virgin in the past, and now it's enhanced, as we all know, through the Lighting project. But to make you aware that Europe is very diverse when it comes to cable footprint. There are some countries like Italy or Greece which never had a cable network. Unfortunately, somebody from Italy always told me, Mr. Berlusconi, who prevented that there was any cable investment in Italy because it was against his interest of Mediaset. I think there could be some truth behind that. And countries without a cable network, in a way, they regret. Because when you look in the service, especially on the broadband side, which I will come back later, those countries have also very poor broadband quality, because they never had the chances which a cable network is now in the other. So in the end, they regret, and they only can do fiber now if they want to have a fixed infrastructure. So, and those who have cable networks, you see it's very different. The front runners in cable, obviously, as we know, are Denmark, the Benelux countries. They are very small, Netherlands, Belgium, they nearly have 100% coverage with cable. Therefore, in those countries, other kind of transmission are I live now in Brussels partly, and there is no satellite reception. When I ask some of my colleagues in Brussels or in Belgium, is there any satellite connection for TV? They would say, no, what is a satellite connection? Because if you have 100% coverage with cable, why do you need satellite dishes? So in a way, you see these kind of things are very diverse in Europe, and we have to handle it. And obviously, for the cable industry, it's nice to have countries like the Benelux, but also like UK now, or Germany. Germany was, I'm a German, so in Germany the cable system had been very a latecomer. Also, that has not Berlusconi, we had not kind of Berlusconi, but we had German Telecom, the incumbent, had the ownership of the cable network. They rolled out, because in the state monopoly days, the telecom monopoly had also the cable monopoly. And when things are going to the market, when the market was liberalized, the German telecom system had no interest to get an internal competitor. So they want to make, and I was regulator in Germany, they want to make Germany a DSL-centric market. DSL, all these standards. But it's not only the standard, but it's also their commercial interest. They thought, why upgrading cable? Then we create our own competitor. Let's make Germany a DSL-centric market, and let's keep cable investment down. So they didn't invest in cable. They only, and while Netherlands, Belgium invested in upgrading cable, Germany did nothing. And then in the end they are forced to sell it. So they sold off the cable network, but very late. So, and then the time you can't catch up immediately. It's a little bit like Virgin. The good news is then you can catch up later. You have a growth potential, but you miss the window of opportunity to be the front runner. And that's sometimes out of a lot of reasons. So we have this kind of very diverse cable landscape all over Europe. But nevertheless, I think those are figures from last year. Cable is quite good off. We have 55 million cable customers, not only homes passed, but real customers who are paying every month. And if you look on the TV households, this is nearly a fourth of all market. You see in Europe, with the European figures, still more satellite receptions. IPTV is still slow. 33 million, and it comes from the incumbents, because the incumbents also now what their only way, because they got competition from cable, so they fired back. The Imperium strikes back, and how could they do that? By having also a TV service, as we know. So that was IPTV, but starting very slow. But now 33 million, still less than cable and satellite. And in some countries, digital terrestrial services are also quite prominent. Germany, for example, because the broadcasters, the public broadcaster, you have 61 million DTT customers in Europe. Why? Because the public broadcasters funded the infrastructure, because they want to have, sometimes out of political reason, to bypass cable networks, because they think, we are too dependent, which I never believed is really true, because in most of Europe you have so-called must-carry rules for the public broadcasters, so cable has no choice. We have to take them anyhow, and we would be stupid if we would block public channels, because it increases the value for also for our cable customers. So why should we block public channels? And we are obliged to do that. So the argument we need a terrestrial channel, also upgraded into digital, to have a direct access to the customer, is not really true. But anyhow, it's a political. That's always policy. So some countries built it up, others didn't build it up. Again, that's Europe. Every every member state has its own history and his own tradition. Yeah, and now it's about SCTE, and I saw you're the organization of the broadband professionals, and I wonder when you changed for this logo to broadband, because broadband is really the big thing for the past years. Cable being a TV distribution channel created only for TV, was lucky to have this kind of additional opportunity to be one of the prime broadband platforms and broadband providers. And sometimes in my early days when I was with Cable Europe, I always had a double copper pair from the incumbent telco, and then I had a cable, and I said, look here, there is much more copper, and you're an engineer. So even if you are not an engineer, I guess, look, these two small copper pairs, or this one small copper pair, and here's this big copper. So our engineers can make much more out of it, So that's a simple explanation why cable, maybe very simple for you, but for politicians sometimes it helps, because it shows them that you can modulate much more for broadband, and that the truth is that what our cable labs in the US did with the DOCSIS standard. In the beginning, predictions about the future, nobody had a clue how much you could. Sometimes it's like a citron, you are pressing more and more out of it, and whenever I talk to cable labs, and they also have by the way, they had a nice event here in London in St. Pancras Station this year, and they're also active in Europe. It's amazing what kind of additional services they are now initiating on this last mile on coax cable, although it's not only a mile, sometimes it's only some 100 meters. And that's amazing how this potential, as you know, is there. So therefore, that was not only a success on the standard side and a success on the technology side, it was also a success on the commercial side, because it gave the cable operators a second source of revenues. And as you know, the broadband revenues are getting more and more important. We are in a strong competition about the TV signals, from Netflix and from others, So in the US, you have the discussion about cord cutting, you heard this expression, and when I'm in the US, they always say, oh, how is it in Europe? You also have this cord cutting. And wait a minute, in the US, somebody who has a subscription for cable, and our colleagues from Comcast and others are what are they paying per month? Oh, $120, $130 for a monthly fee. And then I wonder what your figures here with Virgin are, but in Germany I said, my cable subscription, I'm a cable subscriber for a triple play, is 35 euros. And I have 50 meg, I have voice services, and I have broadband service, and I have a nice box, a Horizon box, what we just talked about, box from Unity Media, which is also Liberty. So I get everything for 35 euros and not for $120, you know. So why should I cut my cord? You know, it's really, if I would have a broadband only, a double play solution, which is possible and which is available, I wouldn't save very much, you know. So, and I have Netflix on top, so I paid 10 euros for Netflix, or what is it, 10. So you pay it on top, but you don't cut your cord. And that's something which our US colleagues are not really, sometimes are puzzled, because in the US they really cut the cord, which reduces the revenues. And because we have these nice triple play packages, which are quite affordable, we are better off. And the more our broadband quality is ahead of the track, you know, the better it is. And if I look at the churn figures and the new subscriptions and the take-up, as you all know, you have much more and more attractive and reliable services already now to 1 gigabit on the cable platform. And I have seen that the offers from cable companies all over Europe. But to be true, nobody really needs a 1 gig. I not, but I wonder if somebody here in the room needs 1 gig, maybe if he has a lot of flat screens and a lot of children or so, he might need, but I still think that most of the customers with 50 meg or 100 meg are quite good off, you know. So why do we 1 gig? Or why do our members, the Cable Europe member, do offers of 1 gig? They just do it to show that we can it. You know, it's more policy kind of game, because all the fiber operators, only FTTH is future-proof and do. And I just heard from somebody from BT yesterday in Brussels in a nice discussion that Ofcom is now making a fiber-only strategy, which I would say it's really dangerous, and say, okay, we need fiber to the home, and we want BT to invest in, and still they are sometimes have a pressure on the incumbent, especially, you know, BT Openreach. We want that they invest in fiber, you know, and sometimes overbuild the Virgin network, which I would say is against the European rules and the European law, because in a way, maybe if it's done commercial-wise, it's okay. But otherwise, I think if there is government involved and pushes an operator to do something which is completely unsensible, maybe they should go there where there's no cable network. I'm fine with that. But to overbuild and spend money in areas where you already have 1 or soon 10 gigs doesn't make any sense. But anyhow, you see this is still policy discussions in Brussels. How is broadband going on? In these figures, we already had 20% market share, growing market share in the EU for broadband, and we have 37 million broadband customers growing, and that's a lot. There is still a gap to the TV customers, but I would predict, maybe this prediction is not too difficult, you know, that this gap will be closed, and that we will have customers in the future which are coming more over the broadband product of cable operators than over the TV product. So the broadband products we have in the market, they are saving our customer base as cable operators, and so it was very good timing that we got the standards sorted out by Cable Labs. Yeah, you see also, this is more, maybe you're also a little bit interested in the company side. We had also a very fragmented cable market around Europe. In some countries you have hundreds of operators. The truth is that there are small local cable operators in the past, and some of cities in Belgium, for example, the cities built up their own cable network, yeah. And in Germany also, in some cities, it was a program when it was TV only. In the days where cable was initially rolled out, that some local electricians could have a cable network in a specific city. So you had a very fragmented market, which is not sustainable at all. So you see a cable consolidation year by year. Cable companies are merging, and then in the end there is only one nationwide cable company. And we see also another thing of convergence, which also is a trend, which is fixed mobile convergence. And that makes sense, you know. We heard about YouTube services on smartphones, on iPads, and on other kind of things. And we have these apps we all use. And so fixed mobile convergence is by the way, we are earlier. Sometimes we always say the US or Asia is in front. In this aspect, I think if you looked on the US, Comcast and others had not a mobile service so far, and we had this consolidation. So if you look around Europe, we have in Vodafone acquired Ono. which has been a member, Vodafone, Zorn and Optimus merged together in Portugal. And we have now, Vodafone and Ziggo made a joint venture in Netherlands, 50-50 joint venture. Base was acquired by Telenet, which is a cable company in Belgium. And now there is a big thing, and maybe in the next days you will hear it in the news, that Vodafone acquired a huge chunk of Liberty's footprint in Germany, Unity Media in Eastern Europe, in Poland. And we will see if this is approved in the next days. I think the Commission, the European Commission it's on their table, and I think it could be only a question of days. So these are the recent fixed mobile cases. Obviously, Vodafone is a big player in Europe. And I also discussed during the coffee, why is Vodafone doing that? I know Vodafone for many years in Europe, and they always had a disadvantage not to have an own fixed network. When some of you might remember Chris Gent, Vodafone CEO, and I know him when I was regulating in Germany, and I met him a couple of times. And then Chris Gent said, I want Vodafone mobile only. Vodafone is a mobile only company. And then as you as engineers knew, I said, but Mr. Gent, a mobile company is 95% a fixed company. The only point is the last antenna to the handheld is in the air, or you need frequency, but the rest is everything is in the ground, and we all know that the signals have to go to the ground as soon as possible, because otherwise this part, anyhow, these very expensive frequencies, we have seen it in Germany now, 6 billion are paid for the 5G frequencies. But this very last mile over the air is limited, and you need backup, and you need a very high quality backup, because then the backup, which is in the ground, becomes a bottleneck. And from my knowledge as regulator in Germany, what? The incumbents, they always have 100%, and they have also a good fiber backup. And it was a commercial disadvantage for Vodafone, at least in Germany, that they had not the same own fiber backup. But what can they do? You know the standards, what they made point to multipoint. The backhaul was, which is, as we all know, not optimal. A fiber backhaul is quite essential, especially if you get to 5G now. You need a fiber backup, and if you don't have your own fiber backup, it's a commercial disadvantage, because then you have to go to the incumbent and you have to rent a fiber backup, and it's not regulated. So the incumbent can ask whatever they want for the backup, and that makes it a commercial problem. So okay, this discussion led to Vodafone's policy now to say no. Okay. Let's acquire cable networks, not only because our fixed broadband, which we already explained the advantage of fixed broadband, but also for backhaul for mobile. We have a double usage, and we need our own mobile backhaul. So those are the recent reasons because these things in Europe happened. Yeah, the next slide is about connectivity targets. This is policy again. There is always a discussion, rural areas are left behind, and we have very poor service, and in the big cities like London, you have, so we have a divided country, we have many divided situations about politics now in the world, and also in Europe and in the UK. But so they think, something should be for everybody. So the European Union said, okay, our connectivity targets for 2025, politicians always tend to make targets which are after their power, So if you are a prime minister or something like that, and you would say, I make a target for 2030, everybody knows, in 2030 he is no longer in the office, So you can promise everything, But so they should promise things maybe in the foreseeable time when they're still in office, but they don't do that, They tend to make promises for 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead. So 2025 is not that much ahead. We are already in 19, so it's 6 years ahead. But these targets are already ambitious. They say 100 megabits per second download in every household. And if you would look around in rural areas, that's really a challenge. You know, I have not the figures here for UK, but I know from Germany that's really a challenge. How will you do that? And 5G available in all urban areas, in major roads and railways. And if you look on the spectrum auction in Germany, which I did 3 spectrum auctions, therefore I know what I'm talking about. There are always kind of coverage obligations. And this is going more and more prominent now. And you know, and some of the politicians say, okay, we want 100% coverage. Huh? And I say, my God, you have no clue what that will mean, you know. And so we had been very wise in my days and said 98 or in the beginning 96, 98% coverage, but not of the square, but of the population. Huh? And so it was a little bit trick, I admit, you know, because how many of the population is living in the London area of the UK, I would say. So, and the same in Germany along the Rhine, and in the big cities, most of the people live there, you know. And you have vast areas, maybe in Scotland or somewhere, yeah, or in Wales, where the population is not as dense, you know. And so you can easily cover the 96% or 98% by covering the big areas and the big populated areas. But now we have populistic movements that say, no, we want every farmer needs it, you know, and I doubt if every farmer really needs 5G. You know, if you want to know how your milk can is half full, you know, or your cows, I think you even can do that with GSM or with Wi-Fi or with other services. You know, maybe for self-driving cars or for autonomous driving, you really would need a 5G environment, but not for every farmer. You know, so I think these politicians are sometimes a little bit. Also populistic, you know, they think we are under pressure from right-wingers, so we have to promise the people everything tomorrow. And so another target is 1 gigabit per second in schools, university, research centers. That can be done. So, but these targets, I just had a discussion in Brussels, it's 2025, 6 years ahead, already very, very ambitious, has to be fulfilled by obligations from the operators, cost a lot of money, and we don't know if that can be fulfilled. And there's already a next wave of people who are saying, 100 meg are not enough, you know, because we are the victim of our own propaganda in a way, you know, because we say, we can do 1 gig, we can do 10 gig, you know, and then it goes on and on. So we want to have 1 gigabit everywhere and then 10 gigabit everywhere. So it's very, very unrealistic, but how can we educate not only the people, but because they don't care, they just want a good service, you know, they don't care about technology, they don't know about DOCSIS or other kind of things, but they want a good service, yeah, and they get a good service in most of the cases. But the more problematic thing are now the politicians, you know, and not all over the world, I would say, and they are promising things which are no longer in line with the reality. Yeah, therefore we need an organization like Cable Europe at least to prevent the worst, you know. And I think these targets, if we fulfill them, are already ambitious, but I'm afraid that in the next Commission people will come up and will raise the targets even higher. Yeah, if we look on the different technologies and coverage by technologies, you still see that, okay, we have 100% coverage in mobile in most of the European states, in fixed, maybe in Eastern Europe is a bit different. We have NGA coverage, by NGA, next generation access, is more than 20 meg in download. So 20, you could challenge if that's really, but that was the next generation. Now we are discussing on very high capacity VHC networks, and the benchmark for very high capacity networks is fiber. And there is now a big discussion with cable and fiber guys, are the same kind of standards which are possible over FTTH, possible over cable. I believe so. Our technicians say that it will be the same parameters, but it's a kind of a benchmark, and it's an ongoing discussion with the regulators now all over Europe. VDSL much less, FTTH much less, and DOCSIS over 40% all over 3.0. No? 4G is already, and satellite is everywhere. Good. So now I will speak a little bit about future trends. We are saying is no broadband, no app. So we need for all these kind of nice, smart environments, which are already there sometimes, but still in some areas not there, we need functioning broadband, fixed and mobile. And we also see, and we are focusing more and more on the IoT growth, And IoT is, we only spoke about television and video and moving images, which is, as you said, 50% of the internet traffic, or even sometimes more. When there is a Champions League game or something like that, it might go up to 80 or something like that worldwide, or when there are Olympic Games. But still, we see a growing tendency with different kind of IoT devices. And the predictions are here, as everybody knows, that it goes up to 30 billion connected devices in 2020. And and you can observe it as technicians in households. Maybe there are still the front runners who have a surveillance camera for elderly people or for their child or their babies, you know, or security systems for windows and for heating control, and you know, all this kind of stuff, or Alexa, or this kind of voice. So it will grow, out of doubt, and it's a good, maybe even a promising development for cable operators also, because like the broadband itself, if you would add these services, and I'm a little bit afraid that the cable operators had not been really the promoters of these kind of smart home services, of IoT services. Obviously, Alexa is not done from a cable operator, as we know. So, and there is a huge advantage from the platforms, from the internet platforms, and because they invested early, and I think that's nice when somebody invested early. We shouldn't blame them for that, you know. But we really should catch up and develop our own services. But there is a big danger, and I just was in NISA, is a European organization who is looking for cybersecurity. And as we all know, I personally believe that cybersecurity will be a topic with growing importance for all of us, you know, because when these hackings and botnets and things are happening, and we know that these kind of devices, sometimes they are very cheap devices from China or everywhere, there is no ex-ante control, if they are secure, if they are reliable, how easy they could be hacked. I think there are dozens of examples, and or not dozens, there are millions of examples that these things are insecure. And then you can get into the system, not only you can get sensitive data and other kind of things. So we really have to act that this IoT environment, this growing IoT environment, doesn't get a nightmare for many people. So I believe that trust and security, cybersecurity and trust is crucial. And so our operators have a good relation to their customers, like Virgin has here. So if we can deliver this confidence and this trust, we also have a better relation to our customers. And therefore, we should really invest in these security technologies. Yeah, you asked me also what is 10G. So briefly about, it mimics a little bit 5G, but it's not the 10th mobile standard. Obviously, I think we are not, but we used a little bit this dynamic of 5G, because everybody speaks about 5G now, not only in the auctions, but I think 5G everywhere. I personally believe 5G will be a very good thing. It will be for autonomous driving and other health services really crucial. It will go much closer and it will create a new environment. First of all, but I personally think it will take longer than everybody's talking about, because, you know, if you can go along roads and trains and highways, it will start there. But to cover the complete areas with a 5G system will take longer than expected. And what I also said, for some services, you might even not need 5G. Yeah? You can use smart, and there was an interesting discussion in the car industry. I wonder if you followed even BMW and Volkswagen and Daimler and Mercedes. They are not on the same side, because some said, okay, we want to set on 5G, and then the car manufacturer said, yeah, but 5G is not there. Yeah? If we would focus now on 5G, maybe in 5 or in 10 years, so let's do it with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is there, and let's take so it was, they really had a policy fight in Brussels, which would be the better strategy, starting with Wi-Fi or with 5G. So in the end, they made a formal compromise, but you see even car manufacturers are not exactly sure what is the best migration path. So what is 10G now? I was called by the end of last year from NCTA. I wonder if you had contact with NCTA. This is more or less the US Cable Association, National Cable Association, much bigger than Cable Europe. I'm a little bit jealous, but they have much more prominent members like Comcast and others. So or Charter, so they're really powerful companies in the US. And they called me and said, okay, and Michael Powell, by the way, it's the son of the General Powell, of Colin Powell, who was in the first Iraq war. And it's a very nice guy. I know him for many years. And he was also the head of the FCC in the US. And he is now the head of the NCTA. And he said, okay, we want to make what cable can do more visible. And we want to make a campaign, and we will call it 10G, the next great leap for broadband. And it's about not only one standard and not only focused on a standard like the 5G standard. It's about reliability, security, speed, latency, and it's about the possibility of cable networks to deliver all of that in a kind of completely, you see here, cable network is here, and you have a lot of other access. You have a 5G signal, you have antennas, you have backhaul, you have direct services, and we want to create also in this policy debate more a kind of a feeling that the whole environment counts, not only one standard, that the whole environment is crucial for the future. And because I'm personally, I'm not an engineer, I have to admit, but I should a little bit, I hope you can read it. If you're interested, I think Cable Labs is quite advanced and can help. The 10G philosophy is more or less embedded in a collection of technologies, which I think is really true. Not only sometimes we talked about that one technology is important, but it's not everything. And technology never is completely sure. You always should take all options. So an uncompromised network reliability. So as we all know, and you know it from your daily work, the customers sometimes want a reliable service, and if you would talk to the helplines of our members, and these people, when they had something is going down and you get these nasty calls, sometimes it's in an environment, it's a Wi-Fi system or it's somewhere else, it's not the backhaul and it's not the cable itself, it's not the DOCSIS standard because they made a mess with the Wi-Fi or they bought a wrong device, But then they are not calling Apple or Google because I think it's very difficult to get somebody on hold, but they call their cable operator and say, oh, I have no access, you are responsible, I pay you every month a fee, and I have, my broadband is down, or my TV is down. So we have all the burden and the work then to sort it out. And you can't tell them, that's something you bought the wrong appliances, it's not ours, you made a mess with your in-house wiring or something like that. We know how complex these things are, but I think we have to take care of it, if we want to have a good customer relation. So the technology is a proactive network maintenance or a dual channel Wi-Fi or whatsoever. You might know better what's behind that. And I think the idea is to have a pampering of all possible faults and so on. And this could be a good way for binding your customers. If you really can help them in these situations, if you can monitor, especially when we talk about this IoT environment, it will be more and more complex what people have in their house, and it will have more and more possibilities for fraud, for problems and so on. And therefore, it's good to think ahead and say, okay, let's have a solution for that, and the solution should come from cable and from 10G. So we need a safe and secure connected future. There is a discussion about Cable Labs micronets. We need, obviously, 10 times faster internet speeds. There is DOCSIS 3.1. There is full duplex. I'm sure you heard about that, because when years ago, these fiber guys always said, cable, they only can do download speeds. Okay, they have done 100%, 400 megabit, 1 gig, but only download, You never can have the same speed in upload. And that was in the beginning, is that true? And then I talked to the technicians, there might be, but so Cable Labs worked on that and said, okay, no, it's possible. We can do full duplex, we can have the same upload and download, And there is this nice full duplex standard now. So it's, for me, very good, because I have now on the policy side, one argument is skipped. And I said, no, it's possible. We have also full duplex. We can do the same speed in upload than in download. So coherent optics, dual channel Wi-Fi, latency, low latency is more and more important. Because everybody talks about speed, upload, download, and we know that some of the services, also what Google is working on, is not only the speed itself, it's jitter, latency, and others, especially the gamers. You know, I'm personally, I'm not a gamer, but I can, I wonder if you are gamers, but I can, if you can envisage that if you are doing these kind of quick shooting games, you don't want that the bullet comes some second later. Okay, so at gaming, by the way, I think it's, we laugh about it. Maybe in our generation it's not that popular, but the young generation, there is a Gamescom in Cologne every year. And one year I passed this Gamescom and I was so surprised because all the train station, everything is blocked by young people who are going to the Gamescom. So, and we know, so it must be a big market, and it's a growing market. Okay, and they are looking for low latency, and we need to develop that. So low latency DOCSIS, low latency Wi-Fi, low latency mobile XHOL. So just to give you some ideas, I'm sure you heard about that, and you are in your magazine, there are a lot of publications about. I'm always glad that we have Cable Labs, because Cable Europe is not an engineer association. We are more on the policy side and on the regulatory side, but we have a very close relation to Cable Labs, and I'm always fascinated what the engineers there are doing for the industry, and how they're thinking ahead, and they are catching up with future developments. So that's something for you. I want to end with it because I know this is an engineer association. I think there are a lot of promising developments. I personally think that cable will be, for years to come, an important source, not only for broadband, but for an environment which will come up in smart homes, smart devices. And I think cable is an ideal source, and maybe nobody knows what will be in 50 years, but we will be fiber everywhere. But for the next 10 or 20 years, I think cable will still be an important player in this market for new and interesting services. Thanks for your attention.
I have a question about IoT. We had a previous session, lecture meeting, where we had a scientist speaking about cyber security, and he called, for good reasons, IoT the Internet of Trouble. Because it is generating trouble, and you mentioned it. In my view, the cable operator is his function is to deliver fast IP streams. That is his job, to get it to the homes. Who do you think, in your view, who is responsible for that security? I don't think it's primarily the cable operator, because his job is to deliver fast internet. Who do you think really is responsible for the security, especially in IoT devices?
Okay, I would argue, or would answer that there's not one responsible side. Obviously, I think the regulatory and the policy environment has to adopt. We have to be aware. You know, when I started, we liberalized completely the market. And it was, you know, Margaret Thatcher, and then you followed that here in the UK, was a front runner. So we liberalized every device. Because in my authority, in the beginning, we had a stamping or a labeling of devices. Everybody who wants to sell devices. Then the philosophy was, this is hindering competition. And everybody could, you know, when I was very, very young, you know, I went to the US and bought a kind of nice fixed phone, which was not available in Germany. I think a Sony phone, which was not available in Germany, you know, because in Germany we only had phones from the incumbent state monopoly. And there was an innovation that some of these fixed phones are green, wood green, and burgundy, and orange. So at least we had 3 phones, you know. And then the dialing was, you had push buttons, you know. Big innovations, you know. But it was illegal to push in this phone from the US, so I made a crime when I did that, you know. And the phone operators in those days, they argued, you kill our system when you plug in a phone from the US. I never believed that this is true, you know. Okay, we're coming from this history, you know, and then everybody said, this is nonsense, this is bullshit. You can buy every phone everywhere and plug it in and no problem, yeah? So it's always like in life, it's you're switching from one side, from one extreme to the other, you know, being a criminal if you buy your handset, and then you can buy everywhere from China or from Taiwan. So now I think from this environment, we have to get a little bit back again to the kind of middle. We have to educate people that these devices could be dangerous, you know, and we have to find something, maybe not again stamping every device, you know, but I have in Germany, we had a unit in BNetzA, or Bundesnetzagentur, which is going to media markets and others and grabbing, maybe grabbing things and testing and then taking it out and could even find them, you know. So you have, at Christmas you have these lighting systems which are causing interference with computers and so. But it's just a drop in an ocean, you know, if we compare what kind of devices are coming. So we need an environment. First of all, we need a regulatory thing which looks on the danger of these devices. We need to educate people, that they don't buy every stuff. And there, I also think it could be a commercial role. You are right, you know, cable operators could say we are only responsible for our pipe. The pipe is bigger and bigger, and the rest has to be done by the customer. But they call our helplines, you know, and then I think it's from the marketing and from the customer relation not always nice to say, that's your problem, it's not our problem, you know, then they might switch to another supplier, you know. So I think it's better than my vision would be, that we would say, our customers could be part of this IoT development, we label some devices, or we sell our own devices, or we have some device partner. Yeah? I think Google or Amazon or others might be also interested, and they are sure they want to have secure devices, you know, because if Amazon or something is wrong, you know, so they immediately have a shitstorm. Yeah? So they can't. But all this cheap stuff, yeah, which is also around, you know, they need not, you know. So we have to educate people. So I would say there must be a multi-strategy. There's not only one answer. You know, we need really to tackle the issue. We need to help our customers. And maybe in a good case, we need to educate the politicians. We have to have some legal adoptions for cybersecurity, also more staff. We have to be more aware where the dangers are coming. Yeah, we need to be quicker when some cybersecurity problem is popping up, yeah, and we need to take this as an advantage for our customers. So I think there's not one answer. There's a couple of answers, but I think blaming the others is never a good strategy. You know, so it's always better you have a package which you can offer.
In the last 5 years in cable, I had a lot of customer service people who say. People calling and say, we lost electricity and we lost Wi-Fi, so I can't log in the internet. And the girl said, oh, because you got no electricity. Do you think it's about time the cable companies have backup on the Wi-Fi, not on cable modem, but on Wi-Fi modems, so they can last 5 hours after when they lose electricity? Do you think about that? Because nobody ever done anything like that.
I think Ofcom has done something. I remember some years, I talked with Virgin about that Ofcom wants to make them reliable for battery backup. And it was very controversial because you know, don't quote me, please. Yeah, it's nothing. It's just a little bit in my very, very back head. So I can't tell you literally what happened, you know. But I remember a discussion between Virgin Media and Ofcom about that. Because Ofcom, it's about emergency calls. Because the same discussion, emergency calls. And we had this European-wide. Because they said, okay, services which coming from the platform operators like Skype or are doing services, you know, without having the obligations of a functioning emergency call service. Huh?
That was happening, and there are battery backup on the cabinets, and you can have telephone calls, even though a lot of people they didn't have a normal phones. They had wireless phones, so they lost it again. But anyway, it happened on the telephone, but it doesn't happen on Wi-Fi.
Okay.
A lot of people now, Wi-Fi is the more important than the telephone because they
Yeah,
can make
right,
it
right. You know, the issue, I remember the issue with the emergency calls because it's very costly and it's a competitive. You know, people are anyhow, you know, in long distance call are switching to Skype and to internet services.
Exactly.
And they use these internet services as a substitute for fixed voice services.
Absolutely.
And they don't have these obligations, you know. So operators came up to my former and said, we should guarantee a backup, and somebody who is not educated at all, that he is using a internet voice service, you know, has no backup. You know, how is this justified? You know, it's a similar kind of service. One part has the obligation for battery backup, and the others has not. You know, I don't know. It's the issue is all sides have to be. And also, you know, if we had phone cells, they are all gone, you know. Now elderly people have a specific monitoring system, you know, and it should be a targeted solution. I only can tell this, you know, and it should be, first of all, we should be realistic. We should look on the competitive side of the market. And, okay, when in the towers in New York came down in 2001, 9/11, I called somebody on my mobile. I got him on the mobile, you know, and the AT&T tower in the south of Manhattan was hit. So the whole fixed system came down, and the mobile system still was functioning. I was so surprised, you know. And if you can study that, it was one of the worst disasters which happened, you know. And sometimes the mobile system is on, you know. And we have also. I worked for Colt Telecom in the 90s for a short time. And we always had reliance backup systems. You know, there was always a ring. If one side of the ring is dead or by a construction worker cut, you know, so the other side of the ring is still. So it's. Let's think about this kind of stuff, yeah. But nothing is 100% secure. We have to admit, huh?
Well, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.